These are the biggest economic measures in our lifetimes to defeat a threat to our health. These historic measures will support Canadians to stay home to defeat COVID-19.
This is the biggest aid package in Canadian history. It includes $2,000 a month to all Canadians who've been laid off, interest-free loans, and for businesses, a 75% wage subsidy. Here's one of the issues. The money won't get to businesses for between 3 to 6 weeks. Is that fast enough? And what more should the federal government do? Conservative leader Andrew Scheer wants, for example, to refund GST payments made by businesses for the last 6 months. He thinks that would be more immediate help. Will that work? And will the opposition support the federal government's current economic package without those additional measures when Parliament is recalled this week? Let's find out. Conservative leader Andrew Scheer joins us now. Great to have you back on the program, sir. I hope you and your family are well. We're all coping with this bizarre situation. Let me just start with the 75% wage subsidy that was introduced. When Parliament gets back, will you and your party support that package?
So what we've said is that we are supportive of these measures. You may remember that when the idea of a wage subsidy was first brought out, we in the Conservative Party flagged that the 10% subsidy that was set originally by the government really wasn't going to help a lot of businesses that had seen a catastrophic drop in revenue. So we are supportive. We're glad they listened to us and raised it to 75%. We want to take a look at the legislation. Last time, the Liberals put a lot of things in there that had nothing to do with helping Canadians. We want to make sure that this is focused on exactly what they've announced. And we are also encouraging them to look at some of the other ideas that we proposed, as you mentioned, like the GST refund. But generally, we are supportive of what they've announced.
Right. So Bill Morneau, the finance minister, told me that, there's lots of ideas, but this is a much bigger package than, for example, a GST refund would be. The big question is how to get this money quickly. Your party, has criticized some of your members, the government, for not getting it more quickly. Is there, this is, to be fair, it's a massive package designed over weeks or days. And it's an administrative nightmare. Is there a faster way to get businesses money? They need it. They're suffering from big cash flow problems. We all recognize the gap. Do you have a better way to get the money quicker to them?
Well, as you point out, this is unprecedented, and we are, we're doing our best to work with the government in a constructive way and to propose these types of ideas. And if I could just touch on the GST refund, because that is something that doesn't require a whole lot of red tape. There's no program that's required. It's a simple refunding of what was already remitted. In many cases, it's money that's just being kept in an account for most businesses that they're about to file with the government. We're not saying that they need to choose one or the other. We're saying that the GST refund is going to help businesses that can't subsidize their wages because they've had no customers come through the door, for example, restaurants. In terms of delivering the wage subsidy, we're proposing ideas that they could look at, for example, a simple qualification period where a processing of the paperwork and an analysis of whether or not companies qualify can happen after the fact, so that the money gets out the door much more quickly. Right now, what they're doing is making companies apply for it. Someone in Ottawa is going to go through that application.
Yeah, they got to prove that they've lost 30% of their wages compared to this time last year. Some people are saying that's too restrictive. Do you think the qualification should be broader and maybe less restrictive?
Well, based on the information that we've had, it does make sense to say, well, most companies that are being hit because of direct government orders are going to be experiencing much more than 30%. So what we're saying is that this is probably one of those times where you can have an auditing function after the fact. You can have the processing done very quickly up front, and then have public servants go through all the applications after. There's other models they could look at. They could look at setting up accounts with banks, putting money into institutions that small businesses are already dealing with for their banking needs, and saying, look, you can access this up front, and again, on the back end, we'll be doing the processing of the paperwork. So there are models out there that are being proposed by things like the Canadian Federation of Independent Business and others that we believe would deliver this aid more quickly. We're hoping that they're going to take these ideas seriously.
One thing is when Parliament comes back again, there's legislation needed for this. The Bloc Québécois has criticized you guys already, saying, look, last time around, the Bloc said we were prepared to give them spending powers that would be unlimited till September 30th, not to raise taxes, but unlimited spending power. So to avoid having to keep coming back like they're doing now for the 75% wage subsidy, they blame the Conservatives for opposing that. And that's, so I want you to respond to that. And I just want to make sure, and I think parliamentary oversight is key. We all do. This is a democracy. Will it slow down the delivery of money, though?
Well, first of all, I believe it's essential. Parliament is an essential service. Rigorous scrutiny and debate is essential to make sure that we get better outcomes. We want the government to get these things right. We want the country to get this right. We want the response to this pandemic needs to be addressed in a multifaceted approach, and we want to be part of that. You get better results when you get analysis, when you get peer review, when you get tough questions asked. We've already seen several times where the government has had to change or amend their plan as either new information becomes available or when people point out their shortcomings and flaws. So, you know, Parliament can be recalled within 48 hours. We've already showed a willingness to quickly fast-track measures to get money out the door. We think, the Conservative Party, we think Parliament and our democratic institutions are designed for moments like this to make sure we emerge from this crisis as strong as possible.
The U.S. is already said, Donald Trump has said he's going to stop the company 3M from sending critical N95 masks to Canada as part of what they're calling the Defense Production Act. This is a big issue because we import a lot from them. How should Canada respond? Should Canada retaliate?
Well, you know, this is very disturbing and very troubling. Obviously, a preferred solution is one handled at the diplomatic level, where we can point out how integrated our supply chains are, how companies that produce parts for masks and ventilators and other equipment sell to both American and Canadian companies and suppliers. We don't want to see an escalation of this where that ability to, you know, move goods back and forth to create a finished product in any way is impeded. That's going to be bad for both the U.S. and Canada. But I think it's critical at this stage that Justin Trudeau explain to Canadians what our contingency plan is. What are we doing here to ramp up production in our own
But he's talked about that. He's talked about a whole industrial plan. Is that not enough? Like they 3,000 companies. They've got lots of companies making masks. Is that not enough?
Well, it's essential that you know, if we are seeing measures south of the border to restrict American companies' involvement to that, you know, we need to make sure that our plan is updated, that it's open and transparent. This is part of the reason why we've been calling for the release of information and modeling and projections, so that we can have peer review. We can have people look at it and say, well, that might not be enough. You know, you might need to go further. That's why the release of that information is so critical. That's why another reason why we called for that last week as well.
Yeah, and we'll see if they do release the modeling projections, and we'll see if the U.S. actually allows 3M to